Okay, we didn't expect a packed house, did we? We could have, we should have. We didn't expect it. Everybody loved Betty. Does anybody, even family, remember a time when you would see Betty and you didn't leave with a smile? Ever? I learned the hard way not too long ago that I should try to do a Google search if I'm trying to do a eulogy, try to remember someone. And the only picture that I found of our Betty is the one from the obituary, which was a beautiful picture. But what I did find, and I thought this was kind of awesome, when I went to Betty Goldman and I went to images, there were what seemed like thousands of pictures. I have no idea why they came up for Betty Goldman. There were guys, there were girls, there were all colors and everything. Every single picture was smiling. I don't know how that happened. I felt like it was some kind of a message. I loved it. We don't want to be here. Not for this. But here we are, so we will try to do what we can. And one thing that she made us promise was that it would be brief. She's been, in some sense, ready for this, as you know. I think I got a eulogy for her about a year ago. They sat down and each of them wrote their own, Len and she wrote their own eulogies. Takes all the pressure off of me, off the family. I thought that the obituary, the line that says, "To those who knew her, no eulogy is required. For those who didn't, words alone could never suffice," is the most perfect line I have ever heard about anyone. And I'm going to save it and pray that I know somebody else that it applies to, because that was perfect for her. I have one more that I found that I want to share with you. Another quote that says, "Live simply, love generously, care deeply, speak kindly, leave the rest to God." Does that sound like Betty? So I'm embarrassed to tell you, because it's an election here, that was a quote by Ronald Reagan. But I just thought it was perfect for her. So I will say it anyway. Death has taken our beloved Betty. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, be with them. For Betty's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. And although some of you have heard this already, I invite you to please join with me. On your handouts, on the back, we have two quotes. The one is supposed to bring us comfort, the first one. Please join me. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." The two lines that strike me the most about Betty there is the part about the still waters. I just feel like whatever was going on in life, she made everything feel like still waters. And you know that I always say, when it's that we should just take out the line that says, prepare us a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, because there was no such thing as an enemy. As soon as she met somebody, they loved her. So I'm just pretending that line doesn't exist anymore for me. But the next one that gets to me about her is, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I feel like that, more than almost anything, really tells us who she was. And then I invite you to join me from the Proverbs at the bottom of that page. A woman of valor who can find, she is more precious than fine pearls. Her husband trusts in her, and so he lacks nothing. She does him good, never harm, all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to the poor. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband doesn't usually sing her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. I picked on Len already, and I said, I'm glad he didn't sing her praises. He would tell of her praises, but it wasn't much singing, because you don't want to hear him sing. I have. That's why I'm telling you. I don't mind, and she didn't mind, but birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing, from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. Before I read the eulogy that they gave me more than a year ago, actually it looks like more than 2 years ago. I'm looking at my email date right now. I like to put things into perspective on our calendar. On the Jewish calendar, yesterday we read a Torah portion that talked about a few things that I think are appropriate. One of them is that God was apportioning everybody's inheritance, the due, what they were going to get, the parts that they were going to receive in life. It was specifically, in this case, territories in the promised land that they were about to enter. And there were 5 brave daughters who stood up and said, hey, wait a second, you forgot about us. Our dad died and he had no sons, and are we going to lose his inheritance because of him not having sons? And they were brave and they spoke up. They weren't necessarily like strong. They just knew what was right, and they spoke up. And God said, yeah, you're right, I'm changing the law. That's the kind of person I think of for Betty. It's not like she was an in-your-face kind of person who would change things that way. She was always consistent and stable and strong, and the kind of person who would have gently spoken up when something was wrong and made it right. And even God would have changed it right there on the spot. The other part that happens in the Torah portion is that the leadership changes. And so we go from generation to generation as we pass on the leadership. So this was approved and received by Betty, and she approves of its content. And it's dated April 27th, 2013. What most people don't know about Betty is the life she lived prior to moving to Shreveport. Betty was the head nurse at Temple University Hospital in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in charge of a 40-bed medical surgical unit. She was probably the best nurse in the hospital. We know who said it, but she approved of it, so this is good. She was an excellent manager and provided compassionate care to all patients. She accompanied the attending physicians when they performed their rounds. The administration of the hospital and the medical school were concerned that her marriage and subsequent pregnancy would prompt retirement, as indeed they did. With the birth of her first child, Larry, she retired from nursing and became a full-time mother. Her second child, Susan, was born 18 months later and completed the family. Larry is married to Denise, and they have one child, Jacob, who's not much of a child anymore. We could have said one young man, and they live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Larry is a practicing attorney. Susan now lives in Boise, Idaho, with her husband, David Kim, and their children, Zachary and Ethan. Susan is a pediatrician, and her husband an emergency room physician. Zachary is a pre-medical student at the University of Idaho. Is that still true? Because it was 2 years ago. See? When her husband, Len Goldman, opened his surgical office in 1988, Betty became the office manager and nurse at that time. She was instrumental in the development and success of that practice. Betty was a caring and compassionate person. People immediately recognize this and appreciate this trait within her. She's quick to compliment and slow to criticize. As a matter of fact, she never criticizes. I would encourage all who are present to remember their interactions with Betty. I'm fairly certain this will provoke a smile on their faces, and it does. She just had that ability. She will be missed by all who knew her and those even who never got the chance. We take a moment of remembering Betty. Into your care, we entrust the spirit of Betty, for you keep faith with your children in death as in life. Sustain us that we may meet with serenity the mysteries that lie ahead, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with us, a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You are the light of our life, a hope in eternity. I ask you to please rise. With Betty's indulgence, I'm going to say this next prayer in Hebrew first. This is the prayer that, in Jewish tradition, sends the soul on the next journey. And I think it sounds beautiful in Hebrew, but I will tell it to you in English right afterwards. El malei rachamim שוכן במרומים, המסי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע, מזהירים את נשמתה שלך לעולמה. בעל הרחמים, יסתיריה בשאת כנפיו לעולמים, ויצורו בצורה חיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר, Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Betty who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say, we continue on the inside of your handout. The mourner's Kaddish is a prayer that is said in Aramaic. We have been saying it this way for 2,000 years, ever since Aramaic was the language that everyone spoke. It is the oldest responsive reading of in any culture that we're aware of. The prayer doesn't talk at all about death or Betty. It just thanks God, as we thank God for having had her in our life. You'll notice that there's the Hebrew characters on the right, and then there's the transliteration at the top left, which means you can sound out the words and make it sound like you're reading in Aramaic, or you can read it in English. It's important, though, if you are so inclined, to say it loudly enough so that we can say it with the mourners. We read together, Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehe shalama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us. In Jewish tradition, we believe that we're not sure what happens in the next life, if there is an afterlife. We believe that we need to do things now to make this world a better place. She certainly made this world a better place. In Christian tradition, sometimes it's said that she's going to a better place. I'm going to say in this case, I know wherever she is, it's a better place because that's where she is. Thank you for joining us. You're invited now to join the family down the hall for some visitation time. Know that we can't tell all the stories in the short time we have together here. Please continue to tell the stories. If you come this way, there are no stairs, and if you go out that way, there are stairs.